I think that you are now ready for another outstanding session that is going to be led by two outstanding Toastmasters. And if I may, I'm going to introduce the two Toastmasters that are going to lead us in our Vice President of Education session this morning. First one is VTM Tricia Spayer. Tricia has been a Toastmaster since 2008 and held the role of Vice President of Education several times. Even though this is the most demanding club officer role, it's Tricia's favorite because it's when we witness members grow the most. When Pathways first started, Tricia signed up to be VP of Education on purpose when others ran away because they were afraid of the challenges. Today, Tricia will share tips and experiences that will help you in your journey. And this is one of the most important things of these events. Take advantage of the experience of the presenters. They have so much experience. Make questions. Our second presenter or co-host for the presentations, distinguished Toastmasters Alicia Smith-Kirk, is our current program quality director and our district director-elect. Congratulations again, Alicia. She joined Toastmasters in 2012 and in 2013 led her club to back, to President's Distinguished as a first-time VP of Education. Alicia's biggest joy in this tremendous role is setting other people for success through team building. There is a checklist, then there is the team that helps you accomplish all the tasks while growing stronger and having fun together.
Today we're going to be talking about the Vice President of Education role. Tricia and I have expressed through our introduction, it's one of our favorite roles to take on, and we've done it multiple times. The role itself, the responsibilities, and the resources that you will have are key parts of today's training. We know that we have very first-time Vice Presidents of Education, and to you, we applaud you and we give you kudos for stepping up and stepping out into leadership for your club this way. And for those of you that have come back to the Vice President of Education role as a leader, again, we're grateful for you and we applaud your efforts as well. There are rewards and recognition that come along with this role. For me, one of the biggest rewards is seeing other people succeed. Really seeing someone come into the role a little bit unsure and leave the role feeling that success of learning how to delegate, to empower, and how to collaborate with a team, how to build that camaraderie toward successful goal achievement. I remember in my home club, I was the Vice President of Education, and when I went to ask people to, who was interested, crickets. No one was interested. I went to speak to one of the PR, the Vice President of Public Relations. I said, I think this role is perfect for you. It's mostly focused on delegation, and I will help you build your team. I made that promise and did that. And I was so excited to see her lead our team to President's Distinguished, again, for our group again. And the key was the building of the team. That was so rewarding for me.
I also, like Alicia, I like to see the growth in our members, especially those who have been afraid to be an evaluator or even the Toastmaster or general evaluator. Once you provide them a little bit of push and a script, they can observe someone in the role first, and then with a script, they can step up to the lectern and perform that role confidently. It's a great feeling seeing them move in their role with progress.
We talk about recognition, and the recognition we're talking about is we have the opportunity in this role to help our club be recognized through the Distinguished Club program. And we talked about that it's more about connecting with people and helping people achieve their goals as opposed to earning numbers. So it's not necessarily about the numbers, but the numbers represent evidence that the club is thriving, that the club is healthy, that members are getting what they're there for, that they are achieving goals. So that's what it's really is, what the recognition, it's a proof that the club is doing well.
Absolutely. Now, the Vice President of Education role in the club, there are 7 officers. The first officer is the president of the club, and the Vice President of Education is the second ranking officer in the club. So this means that if the president is not available during the meetings or executive meetings, you get to step up and lead the session. You will be the ranking officer at that point. You will also become the designated expert in the educational program and contests. So we encourage you to learn as much about pathways and contest procedures and everything. Make sure that you pay attention to all the district training that we will be having. And you don't have to know everything about all of these events, but you will know us. You will have somebody to reach out to for questions, but you will be asked about the different educational programs in our Toastmasters Club. So please be prepared and reach out to us for help.
Absolutely. The responsibilities that we're going to talk about, your responsibilities related to the club meeting itself, things that you'll do outside of the club meeting, and in particular, the executive club meeting and the committee. And at this time, we're going to take a look at the club leadership handbook. This is what I call a virtual tour or field trip.
Yeah. Going to.
Those of you who are returning club officers know how valuable, or should I say invaluable, the club leadership handbook can be to all of us club leaders. Every question that you want to ask, you will find.
All right. Need to locate the right pages.
Right. 11, 16, 18. We're going to take a look at 4 particular pages. Page 11 will be the first page that we look at. And as Vice President of Education, one of the things that's important for each of us to do is to connect with our area directors. The area directors, you heard Matt Kinsey talk about area directors. And Tricia, I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay.
Talk about area directors and how just different ways to approach inviting someone to be an area director. But the area director role, they are the liaison between the club and Toastmasters International. So you as Vice President of Education definitely want to have an open line of communication with the area director. And I'm not seeing the club leadership handbook for some reason.
You're not?
No. There we go. So on page 11, you can about the area visits to the club. You can expect your area director to come and visit your club. You will make sure that you give information to the area director about your members and what their progress on education awards are going to be. The club executive committee is really important. A lot of clubs have meetings at different frequencies. I have a club that I'm on the executive committee. We meet weekly. I'm sorry, not weekly. We meet twice a month. And our club meets second and fourth, so we meet first and third. Another group of the executive committee, it's more convenient for us to meet once a month. But talk with your other leaders and determine what is the best for you to have meetings. It's important to have time outside of club meetings to organize and plan for the club. And Tricia, you can just let us know, please, which is the next page we're going to go to.
This is 16.
Great. This is really important, district council meetings. And we just had a district council meeting in May. And many of you, I see that many of you were there. If you are a brand new vice president of education, this is very important for you to write down. you are a part of the district council. You are the voting body of our entire district, which currently has a little more than 1,800 members to our district, almost to 2,000. And you represent your club's voice for any voting matters that we have. We can learn more here about the District Executive Committee, and that consists of our District Director, Program Quality Director, Club Growth Director, Administration Manager, Finance Manager, Public Relations Manager, all 5 of our division directors, and 24 area directors, along with the immediate past District Director. So all of those members of the District Executive Committee, along with the Vice Presidents of Education and the club president, create the district council. So please know and put on your calendar that next year at the conference, you will be attending the council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And this talks about the council meeting and the members of the district council. Good.
Okay, I'm going to 18 now.
Oh, wonderful. This is one of my favorite places in the club leadership handbook. This is the best. You will want to keep this with you. You're going to want to print these 4 pages out. This is your club timeline. It's a quarterly representation starting in June, which is the transition month from your current leadership team to the next leadership team. The top gives you specific deadlines to follow, and the bottom portion shows important tasks. And again, it's quarterly, so when you go into your club leadership handbook, and you can Google and get it. Just Google Club Leadership Handbook Toastmasters, and you'll access it right away. And that's it for the Club Leader Manual for now. But you can see how it looks. It's quarterly. Great.
Right. You go back to.
And I'm going to pass off to you, Tricia.
All right. Back to our regularly scheduled program. In the Toastmasters meetings that you'll attend, we have different things that you'll be responsible for within the meeting itself, right before the meeting, which we'll talk about right now, and outside of the meeting. So let's say that we're meeting in a Zoom environment. Right before that club meeting starts, when the Sergeant at Arms says, okay, now we're starting our meeting, when people are entering the Zoom room, we encourage you to certainly welcome guests, get their names, ask them their why, and make sure you make a note of that, because that is the reason that they will join Toastmasters. And you can apply different aspects of the meeting to that person if they want to develop confidence, for example, like Matt talked about. It's a good idea to review the scheduled roles. And especially in the Zoom meeting, you may not have a printed agenda in front of you. So if you could at least post an abbreviated version of the agenda in the chat box, or email it to someone so that they could bring it up on another screen, or even better, make sure that your participants rename themselves. For example, Toastmaster, Table Topics Master, Speaker, Evaluator, so that everyone knows who is performing which roles in the room. And make sure that everyone is prepared in those different roles. Also offer support to the Toastmaster in making sure all of the roles are filled for your meeting. In Zoom support, this is important. If you cannot provide Zoom support as a host or a co-host, as far as muting people, making sure that the timer is available and so forth, try to find someone who is tech savvy in your club that you can make them the Zoom master for your meeting. To page down. Also, if someone has just attained a certain level, perhaps in Pathways, let's say Sally just achieved level 1 in Pathways and you have entered that in the Toastmasters International site, you want your club members to know about this. Make sure that you tell your president ahead of time. If the president is the normal person who closes the meeting, make sure that you mentioned that Sally needs to be recognized during this meeting, perhaps at the end of the meeting, say, Sally achieved level 1, she's a dynamic leader level 1, and so that everybody can celebrate and make sure that everybody knows that they are achieving different levels. Alicia.
Thank you, Tricia. Thank you, Norberto. I love what you said about recognition, because it's exciting and motivating for people to acknowledge the hard work that you're putting in and to celebrate with your friends and your fellow Toastmasters. So that's really important. Upon arrival at your club meetings, you're going to want to verify that members who've signed up for roles are there and present to fulfill those roles. Things come up, people sometimes are running late or they can't make it at all. So it's your job as the Vice President of Education to support your Toastmaster. A lot of clubs do different things to manage their agendas, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, but definitely have in your mind who's going to be there and make sure that there'll be some last minute changes, pitch in, and make those suggestions and help the Toastmaster out, especially if the Toastmaster is a first-time Toastmaster. Inform your topics master of any guests willing to participate. Table topics is a very fun and exciting way to practice public speaking. For some people, it is terrifying. We have to keep that in mind. When we used to meet in person, one of the really important jobs I enjoyed doing was greeting guests and finding out a little bit about them before the meeting. I would always ask them if they would like to participate in table topics, and I got various responses. Some people said, oh yeah, or what is that? It's impromptu speaking. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about, or you can talk about the topic. So some people were excited to do that. Some people gave me a horrified look, and they said, oh, no, do I have to, And sadly, I have seen a person be asked to give table topics, and they said no, and they didn't come back to visit. So it's really important as Vice President of Education that we set a tone and we make sure that everyone is understands that this is a part of the volunteer part, but they don't have to do that. Next.
As I mentioned a little bit earlier, if your president is not available for the day, you are the presiding officer. And I also mentioned talking about the education program or speech questions. For example, someone might need a question answered about pathways. If you didn't attend our pathways session last night, it has been recorded that you can watch that and you can help guide them through it. The district will also have resources to help people along their path. Alicia, you're muted.
So that would be something to practice in the Zoom room, muting and unmuting. I always forget that. We talked about outside of the club meeting, planning the club meetings, promote, participate in the education program, orient new members, and encourage new members to participate. I'm going to talk about this. Your club meeting, you are the one that is in charge of the club meeting. So you have your regular club meetings that meet either weekly, maybe your club meets once a month, maybe your club meets twice a month. It's a good idea to have the meeting agendas planned out for at least 6 weeks. Now that might be challenging depending on your club situation, because maybe people don't like to sign up. They're not sure what their schedule is, especially now that we're at home. And if you have children at home, especially if they're little, it's a bit different of a situation you're in now. But trying to find out what people's goals are is very helpful. I remember talking with one of our newer members about giving speeches. We were talking, she said, oh, I really need to give a speech. I really haven't given a speech in a while. I said, well, what are you working on? What's your goal? We started talking about her goal. Well, I want to become more confident in public speaking. I said, well, the best way to do that is just to sign up and speak. And she was really nervous, but I said, let's look at the calendar. And we actually signed up. We found 3 more spots on the calendar over a 2-month period, actually. and also a spot for her to be an evaluator to go ahead and finish up level 1 to complete a goal and to practice that public speaking. And you know what? We never looked back, and each time, voila, it was on her schedule, and she showed up, she gave those speeches. And I noticed she actually was more relaxed because she had a schedule. Mm-hmm. So we can, encourage our members to find out what their goal is, or as Vice President of Education, that's something that will help guide us. We also want to make sure that everyone understands the education program. If you don't understand it, you can't participate fully. Matt Kinsey talked to us about stop saying Pathways, because there's no 2 programs. Pathways is Toastmasters, they're one and the same. So that was really good information that he gave us that we can take to heart and think about how do we orient new members. So we have in my clubs, we have new member orientations right in succession with the 3 member building campaigns. So September, October with the Smedley, we typically have a new member orientation right after. And same thing for Talk of Toastmasters in February and March. And then once again, after Beat the Clock in May and June. We also work with we have a mentorship chairperson that coordinates the mentor-mentee relationship and make sure that it's short but succinct. We check back in. He or she encourages the monthly check-in to make sure that right away a member needs to be able to access the education program. So whenever someone signs up, it's a celebration. You get a new member, it's a celebration for everyone. But us, in our job as Vice President of Education, we have to make sure that new member can get their access to their manual and start their speeches and getting credit. So those one-on-one, and Tricia, you had talked about the Pathways PAL also might be a good option for some new members. Those are great ways to encourage them to participate.
That's right. And of course, you are responsible for creating the agendas for the meeting. But guess what? You're in charge and you have the power to change the agenda if you like. So for example, this is the end of the Toastmaster year and 4 people want to get their speeches done before June 30th to achieve their awards to help your club. Perhaps there aren't enough speaking slots in your regular agenda. Guess what? You have the power to change that. You could create something called a speechathon or whatever your club likes to call that, where you would schedule maybe 4 speakers in the session and perhaps take out table topics to save a little bit of time. But you can have several speakers in a row. Just make sure that you do have evaluators for them and you build in enough time for all of the speakers to be able to give their presentations. If they're speaking a 15 to 16 minute speech, make sure there is time in the agenda for that. You'll have to coordinate that with your actual speakers, but this is a great opportunity for many people to speak. Perhaps you just got 4 new members. You could celebrate. They can all give their icebreaker on one day. That would be an awesome treat for your members. I would highly encourage you to schedule a meeting that it's all about Pathways help. Now that we're on Zoom, this is a fantastic opportunity to educate our members about Pathways, our educational program. And if you don't know enough about that, you can invite a speaker from another club or from the district to come in on Zoom. It's easy to share our screens. We could step through the things, answer questions all about the educational program for your newer members. For those of us who have been on the traditional program, you can schedule a meeting specifically for the educational program. And you could also try to schedule a meeting that's perhaps about Zoom help. Did you know that the online meeting environment is very popular? And if you become proficient in that, you can run meetings in your business and you become more valued. All of a sudden you have a new skill that you didn't have before. So you can schedule these specialty meetings just for certain events. Alicia talked about assigning a mentor. It's a great idea for every member to have a mentor. We have run a program where there are members who might be junior members who've been a member for maybe 1 or 2 years, mentoring people who've been in Toastmasters for 30 years. I guarantee that newer member will see something that the more experienced Toastmaster will not see in his or her speaking role. Every member could pay attention specifically, maybe write just an extra note, send them an email after the event, and be their evaluator. That's what a mentor can do for an experienced Toastmaster. But also, of course, the newer members do need help stepping through the educational program, and everybody should be able to have somebody to call on if they have a question.
One of the things you can do in the executive club meetings, and we did talk about that, and showed you where to get the information out of the the club leader handbook. One thing you can do is plan with your officer team, and the 7 or 8 of you. So your team, your executive committee does consist of your 7 officers plus your immediate past club president. And you may want to ask your immediate past president to be the mentorship chair if you don't have one. They would pretty much have a good idea of who the members are at that point. But you can share as vice president of education, you'll give a report to all the other officers and let them know, here's where we are, these are what the members are achieving. And here are some plans I have for the agenda. Get some feedback, make it interactive. We'd like to have a quarterly speech-a-thon in our club. So we have, because we have 20 members, we want to provide more opportunities. Or we want to invite other clubs in our area to do a joint event, maybe an icebreaker event, where we get to know the different clubs in our area. That's super helpful because guess what's coming up in the fall? Club speech contest. And for those of you who have been vice president of education or served as an officer role, you know how important it is to be able to get help from within your local fellow club members. So volunteer to go help them out at their contest, be a timer, be a ballot counter, be a learner. I like that term that Matt used about being a learner, because when you learn by doing, and also they need judges. So these are things you can talk about in your executive committee meeting, and planning ahead of time for the full year will be so helpful to you as a vice president of education to be able to manage your tasks. We already talked about the district council meeting being once per year. I will mention here, for those of you that are new, you can have a proxy vote. We typically have a proxy vote where if you can't make it, you can assign your vote to another person. Now this year, since we are virtually online, it was not allowed. Proxy votes were not allowed. I am not sure what will happen next spring, but we will find out. And we did talk about how important it is to connect with your area director, because your area director also might be the person to come and visit your meeting and provide pathways help or Zoom help.
Also, outside of the club meeting, if you were looking at the pathways training, we talked about this yesterday as well, but when a member completes a level, for example, let's say she has completed all 5 different projects in level 1 and needs to complete level 1, you are the one to approve that level so that she can move on. There's an actual spot in the Pathways Base Camp space. We could talk about Base Camp a little bit later. It's where you go in and approve that level completion. It's very simple to do. All you need to do is log in, look for the pending requests. You'll see a member's name and a little green check mark with a red X next to it. If you approve her finishing the level, all you have to do is click that little green check mark and that level will be completed. That member will achieve a level 1 certificate from Toastmasters International, and also they'll receive a notification from Toastmasters International. I want to stress this. Please, please, please make sure your members tell you when they have completed a level, because not everybody gets the notification from Toastmasters International. So if if you don't know about it, you can't submit the project completion request. So if your member is finishing up a level, please make sure that they tell you so that you can go in and approve it, and try to approve it within 48 hours so that she could move on. In addition to completing a level in Pathways, you must also submit an education award through Club Central. And this is on the Toastmasters International website under Leadership Central, and then you go to Club Central, and it says Submit Education Awards. You'll click on that button. There will be a drop down with all of your members' names. You'll click on that member, choose the award that they have completed. For example, level 1 in Pathways. You'll select that award, complete that application, and submit that to Toastmasters International. What does that do? That notifies the member that you have submitted the award. They get an email. It notifies your president and yourself through email from Toastmasters International, but it also helps your club. And we'll be talking about the Distinguished Club Program later this afternoon, but the educational awards are recorded in the Distinguished Club Program. This is what counts, submitting your educational awards in Club Central. So it's very important that you do both. You have to approve the level and submit them in Club Central. And we highly encourage you to help members complete their paths, complete award applications. If they are working towards a DTM, for example, a Distinguished Toastmaster, there is an extra application that they need to complete and fill out. You can work with that member to make sure that all of the criteria have been submitted and help them submit that application to Toastmasters International.
As Vice President of Education, you are a base camp manager, and you have assistant base camp managers already built in. That's the club president and also the club secretary. So you're going to want to schedule a meeting with the club president and secretary to talk about how your club is going to handle managing a base camp. And what that means for those of you that are new is you will be able to view all of the club members to see where they are on their path. So there are 5 levels to every one of the 11 paths and pathways. And within those levels, we can see now what projects they're on. For example, level 1. Level 1 has 3 projects. So they have their icebreaker speech, that's a project. They have the evaluation and feedback project, that's the second one. And the third one is research and presenting. You'll be able to see a listing of everyone in your club, what their status is on each one of those projects. So for example, if they're under the icebreaker project, all the members will be listed, and it could say in progress, it could say completed. And we will have time to demonstrate in a few minutes when we finish up with our presentation and take questions, if that's something you guys would like to see. Also, we did cover this in our Pathways training last night, and there will be a video available on our District 10 YouTube page, and we will send it out to all the members in the district. Arranging for your replacement or assistance. I think this is really important. I talked about this earlier. I was Vice President of Education in my home club 2 different times. The very first time when I was a new member, and my first leadership role was VP Education. The second time was several years later. Now, both times our club was President's Distinguished, but I have to tell you, I handled the job very differently from the first time, being so new, to the second time, understanding how important it was to have a team. I like this quote. It says, you can go far by yourself. You can go fast. You can go fast by yourself, but further with a team. And some of the members of the team that I had on my team were speech contest co-chairs. I remember wanting to compete in a speech contest, and if you're the vice president of education, running the speech contest is your job. It's one of your jobs. I highly suggest that you get at least one person to chair the upcoming speech contest, but why not get two? Two people, they can split the duties in half, they can learn about how to chair the contest, and that would be a great experience, an opportunity for them. Also, a mentorship chair I had mentioned, and a recognition chair. I really like the recognition chair because this person identifies members that are achieving in Toastmasters and outside of Toastmasters and recognize them in person in the club, and in our case, digitally online here. If you do have a team, when you do have a team, it will be much easier to have a successor, to have someone who is willing and understands how to step up. One other thing that we did in the past as well, we actually had an unofficial role called backup VPE. So we had a person who was the backup vice president of education. It was an unofficial officer role, but they handled practical things. For example, they helped with filling the agenda. If the vice president of education wasn't there, they provided the agenda. And that's something that you want to think about how, and you may be doing this different ways now. Do you use the chat box to share the agenda? Do you encourage the people in the meeting to rename themselves? For example, Jen, evaluator, and then your name, or a Toastmaster, so that people know who's serving which role? Do you use screen share or a whiteboard? How are you keeping the members, and especially the visitors, to understand how the meeting is flowing? And Matt talked about a digital membership packet. I really like that idea a great deal. We can go to the next slide. We talked about this.
Okay. Do you want to cover this one?
Sure. How will you fulfill your responsibility? When will each action be completed, and who is available to help you? What are the materials and resources you will be able to use? Those are probably questions you have in your mind, especially if this is your first time taking on this role. So what we would like to see you do is to have a team. We would like for you to have a team. So there are people in your club that you will ask, to be on your team. And which action will be completed when? The club leader handbook will be a great tool because it has the timeline. You don't have to think it out. It's already set up for you. You just need to follow it. It tells you when things are due and what tasks need to be handled in which month. So those are the really important materials that you will need. Who's available to you? Your club president is typically someone who has served in some of the majority of the officer roles, but the club president's main job is to support every other club officer. So you can go to your club president, you can go to your area director. Area directors have served in these roles. And so those are important things. Also, make sure that you make announcements in your club. I don't know if you do this already or not, but every single club meeting, we ask for announcements and encourage announcements from our club officers. The main person who has a lot of announcements is typically the vice president of education, to announce what's coming up. Let your members know what's going on in the club. If you have a special event coming up, if there's something going on in the district, help keep them aware of that.
Okay. We have a checklist for you. Matt Kinsey said that he likes checklists. So do we. Let's talk about those. Well, congratulations. You have checked off number 1, attending district-sponsored club officer training program. You are here. Great job. Check. Read the materials. What materials? The club leadership handbook. Alicia said that you can Google it and find it. You can also go to Toastmasters International Leadership Central under Club Officer Resources. Find a link to it there. There will be other materials that we'll reference throughout the year from your area directors, your division directors, and make sure that you're actually paying attention to some of them, because there could be changes, for example, in the educational program, or something happening different on the screen. So it's good to know, keep up to date on what's going on. This is the time of year to meet with the outgoing executive committee. Find out if there are, for example, people working on a certain path or they want to finish up a certain level, maybe they have to finish their traditional program before June 30th. This is the time to find out who stands where in their educational program. Find out how they ran the program this past year. Find out any tips or lessons learned that they had so that you can apply it to your upcoming year. Obviously, meet with the outgoing Vice President Education. And meet with the current Executive Committee. It's a good idea for all of you to meet, all of the Toastmaster officers who served in the 2019-2020 year, and all of the officers who will be serving in the next year. It's great for all of you to get together, make sure that the handoff is smooth, everybody knows what's going on in the club, if there are any issues outside, what does your budget look like, any plans that the club had as far as purchasing materials and so forth. It's a good idea for everybody to just get on board.
Invite 1 to 3 people to serve on your education committee. Look for someone who could be the mentorship chair. I already mentioned it could be your immediate past president. Find someone who would enjoy focusing on recognition. Find 1 or 2 people to host or co-host or chair the speech contest. Make sure you take time to meet with each one of your members to discuss their education goals. And there's a way you can connect what people's goals are to what roles that they fill in the meetings. So if someone is going to be the Toastmaster, it would be great if they were to be the Zoom host for the meeting that day, because they could get credit and pathways for managing an online meeting. That would be a really great connecting point. Also, the High Performance Leadership Project. Some of your newer members may not know or be thinking about doing a High Performance Leadership Project. It doesn't come up until the later levels, 3, 4, 5. But if they are going to serve on your committee, they could do that as a part of a High Performance Leadership Project. So just remember that you want to present to everyone, all of your members, what are the educational programs that they could participate in. We also have the Accredited Speaker Program. It's a wonderful program for anyone that's looking to become a professional speaker. It pushes you to speak outside of Toastmasters. One of the requirements is to give 25 speeches, 15 of which you have to get paid. So that's definitely pushing you toward that professionalism. And there's a wonderful program that you as a Vice President of Education, you should also take a look at the Accredited Speaker Program so that you can share the information. You may have members of Toastmasters within your club that would like to pursue something like that, just don't know about it. So that goes back to the what are their goals. Next.
Okay. And when you're creating an agenda, you may have a certain way that you like to do it already. Perhaps you fill out an Excel sheet, or everybody sends an email to figure out who's doing what role. There are other tools out there that you may not be using that you might like. For example, Free Toast Host is a website that you can get a license through Toastmasters International, and it's designed specifically for your club. Your members could go to this site and actually sign up for rules. There's an agenda builder. It has the Pathways projects built in. They can add their introductions to it, and you can actually build out agendas for the upcoming year if you want to. And we were talking about scheduling people several months in advance. Google Sheets or an Excel sheet is a great way to do this, because people, if it's a Google Sheet, you could share it among your members. All they have to do is find the link, go in there, sign up for a speech in August 28th. They know that they're going to have the speech then, so they're prepared. They, like Alicia said, they would be relaxed because they know what's coming up, and they're more motivated to actually attend those meetings. This is one of the tips that I learned several years ago from one of the Vice President Education trainers, Pete Punwani. Many of you know him. He talked about working with a member to achieve their goals. Let's say that they have to finish 4 speeches to achieve a certain level. Perhaps they want to do that by October. So how does that work? You work backwards. From October, they need to do perhaps a speech a month. Get them on that schedule. Put those exact dates of your meetings in there so they know exactly when they're going to speak. And by October, they will have finished those 4 different speeches, done any projects they needed to do in the meantime, and they're happy, they achieved their goal. You're happy because your agenda is being filled out, and it's a great tool to use. There's also a website called EasySpeak. I do not have any experience with that, but there are many Toastmasters clubs in our district who are using that, and perhaps some people on our call today are using EasySpeak. Perhaps we can connect you with that.
There are many resources for you to be successful in your role as Vice President of Education. And there's the speech contact information. There are all these links available to you for the rule book, as well as the Distinguished Club Program and the Club Success Plan, along with, it says a wall chart set. This is something that is a little bit outdated, that one, as well as the Competent Leader. Oh, but the Accredited Speaker Program is what I was just talking about. That is current. And then there's some FAQs that you can look at. The Member Achievement Record, because that our traditional program will end literally on June 30th, 2020, a matter of days. Unbelievable. We won't use that. But the educational achievement, gifts, and recognition, I want to talk about that for just a moment. Tricia had mentioned the club budget. So depending on how many members that you do have a club budget, which is predominantly comprised of your member dues. What do you do with the member dues? The club dues, So different clubs charge different amounts for club dues. Anywhere from, I've heard $10 twice a year, up to $15, even $20 or $5. Just depends on what the club wants to do. Some clubs like to use the club funds for recognition or for open houses when we used to be in person and have different foods. But whatever you decide to do, you may want to think about utilizing your club funds for member building campaign. And you can have one within your club. You would work with the Vice President of Membership, of course, and look at that. So something to talk about when you go back to your club executive meetings, talk about the budget. The treasurer is going to make the report, but have some ideas. How would you, as Vice President of Education, like to utilize any of the club funds to recognize members? Is there something specific you'd like to do?
I wanted to mention that this chart is in the Club Leadership Handbook. And like Alicia said, some of these are obsolete now because we're moving strictly to pathways. But this chart is definitely in the Club Leadership Handbook for your reference, so you don't have to write all this down.
Right.
So that's it for the slideshow.
So now we want to open it up. We want to invite you to turn your videos on and to raise your hands, your actual hand or your virtual hand, and let's talk about it. Do you have questions? Do you want to share anything? We have a bit of time.
Aside from each member accessing the club website, which some still are having difficulty doing, or perhaps pinning or putting the agenda in the file, or having a screen share, has anyone come up with a creative way to get the agenda to each club member? Tricia mentioned that early on, but it really would be helpful for them to have that within their view. Has anyone come up with a creative way to get that out there?
That's a great question, Michelle. John?
For our club, if you click print, it will give you the option to select a printer or create a PDF. I create a PDF from Free Toast, and then I'm starting to share that now.
How are you sharing it, John? Are you putting it in the file? Or are you?
Well, once it's a PDF, I can post it in the Zoom chat.
Okay, so that's where you're putting it. Okay. Thank you.
Alicia, I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a way to access these slides after the training is done?
We can
Yes.
make it available if you have registered. We'll be sending some things back out to those who registered. If not, Tricia, did you want to talk about the website?
Yes, the district10.org will soon have a, excuse me, a club officer button. So what you would do is click that button and it would have the resources for the Vice President of Education. So the, the training slides, the club leadership handbook, any other resources that we might come up with for this office role as well as the other office roles, they will all be accessible from the district10.org website. But as Alicia mentioned, immediately we can certainly send you the link to this slideshow presentation.
I saw Jolene raising her hand. Jolene, you have a comment?
Yeah, there's two things that I thought were really excellent for all members, and that was having that joint event, including other clubs or go visit other clubs. Actually, I had someone from Minnesota contact me and say her goal was to visit other clubs until they go back to meeting in person, and I thought that was really great. So that might be a good goal for a couple of people. The other thing I liked was the recognition share. We have never thought about that, but whoever came up with that idea I think is excellent. The more that we can involve other members from your club, the better it is. And I know we've added a listener part to our agenda, so that includes another member. But I love the recognition share, and there's always somebody out there that wants to I know I'm a big recognition person. I think that's really important. So those are two things that I think would be helpful to your clubs.
There's one more hand from Michael.
Yeah, thank you. I had a comment from our first question with regard to how to get the agenda out there. And what I've seen in our club is we actually, in the end of our meeting at that week, the VP of E will present what the topic is for that next meeting. And then also what they'll do is they'll incite or encourage people to sign up for any roles that might be still available. That's maybe one way to round out the current meeting, get the agenda out there, at least kind of give people an idea of what's to come.
We'll see you in a few minutes for more. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.